to the Rossmoor Spring Orchestra Summer Pops concert. Thank you all for coming in this air-conditioned room. And we have had a lot of fun with this music. It's music that we don't usually play, and we've just been having a lot of fun, so we hope that you do too. We're going to be starting with America. They're going to tell you something about each piece.
America the Beautiful, one of the most popular American patriotic songs. Lyrics were written by Catherine Bates as a poem, inspired by what she viewed on a cross-country train trip from the East Coast to Colorado in 1893. The melody is by Samuel Ward, who was also inspired on a trip, but from Coney Island to New York City in 1882. Note that the melody was written 11 years before the words and later modified to fit the words. Of note, Bates and Ward never met. The poem and melody were put together and finally published in 1910. America the Beautiful represents hope and brotherhood in our country and encompasses many of the Americana songs we're going to play for you today.
Wild West movies with lots of gunslingers and shootouts, you'll enjoy this piece. It's called The Blazing bows of the West, not blazing saddles. Blazing bows at Professor Orchestra here. This piece is a medley of theme songs from 3 famous Western films. The first is the 1960 film, The Magnificent Seven, starring Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen, etc., etc. And the second film, and the second theme is from a 1962 star-studded epic western, How the West Was Won. And that starts all the biggies, Jimmy Stewart, Henry Fonda, Herbie Peck, etc., etc. It's a 2.5-hour movie. And the third piece is called the Blazing Saddles of the West, starring Cleavon Little and Gene Wilder. And this piece has been dubbed, listen to this, a satirical postmodern Western comedy. Whatever that means. Anyways, so here it is, the Blazing Bows of the West. Enjoy.
It was one of these pieces that was written by a music educator. She's now retired and lives in Texas. And you try out these pieces and you say, I wonder what this is going to be like. And this was one of those pieces that everyone said, oh, I really like this. Even the first time we played it. So we wanted to give you an moment and play this for you, the Appalachian Sunrise.
The next song we're going to play for you is called Slavonic Dance by Anton Dvorak. Dvorak was a Czech composer, that lived from 1841 through 1904. He was an incredibly versatile composer, known for employing rhythms and styles from the folk music of Moravia and his native Bohemia. He was commissioned to compose the Slavonic dances that we're going to play for you today in 1877. Before writing the Slavonic dances, Dvorak was largely unknown. However, this music's success and high sales led to his international success. In 1892, Dvorak became the director of the National Conservatory of Music of America in New York. During this time, he wrote his famous New World Symphony and his most famous piece of chamber music, the American String Quartet, a truly beautiful piece of music. Dvorak was fascinated with the unique musical voices of America, and he incorporates elements of both African American spirituals and Native American musical styles in his New World Symphony. It is a testament to his vision of an American National School of Music.
which is an old soft shoe dance from vaudeville times. And the rhythm of this tune is played by the string bass player by tapping on the ribs of the bass. And if this tune doesn't make you want to tap dance afterwards, I don't know what will.
playing the bossa nova. The bossa nova is a Brazilian musical style blending samba and cool jazz emerging in the late 1950s in Rio de Janeiro. It's characterized by its distinctive guitar rhythms and complex harmonies. Today's bossa nova trista has been arranged for string orchestra with the second row, emulating the guitar part in maracas, creating moving and grooving rhythms.
Thank you. And we have a very fine maracas.
The next piece is called Bluegrass Country. It's not exactly bluegrass, it's not exactly country, but I think you'll enjoy it. But since I have a captive audience, I'd like to tell you a little bit about bluegrass. It's actually a pretty new genre. You'd think that it was from way back, but it was in the 1940s that Bill Monroe and his buddies, the Bluegrass Boys, hence the name, invented this form. They used old traditional fiddle tunes, but they added some different instrumentation and a really strong driving feel to it, and sometimes a very high harmony that was called high lonesome. Now, it was kind of an offshoot country for a while. Nobody much knew about it unless they were crazy. But in the 1970s, it became popular, and it became popular through the movies. The first one was Bonnie and Clyde, where they did Foggy Mountain Breakdown. And the next one was Deliverance, where you had dueling banjos. And then the final one was when we got to Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, with the entire soundtrack. And then it sort of took off. These days, there are lots of bluegrass players around with all kinds of different things that they're doing. But there's an International Bluegrass Association that boasts members in all 50 states and in 30 other countries. So we hope that you enjoy bluegrass country.
the cello music to play this song annoyingly. And I don't want to brag, but I think the cellos have become excellent at playing annoyingly. And there's also a part of the music that is sound effects, the of mosquitoes. And when you hear the occasionally you'll see members of the orchestra standing up. And what it's supposed to represent is a mosquito popping up and a mosquito popping down. But the thing is, this music was written for a school orchestra, and this is the Rossmoor Orchestra. So the springy legs of the youth are kind of shot. So they kind of stand up more carefully and slowly and sit down more carefully and slowly. And I'm scared you might not think they were mosquitoes. You might think that they were having a senior moment, standing up for absolutely no good reason and then sitting back down again. And there's one more sound effect that's very nice, which is, you know that sound when a mosquito gets in your ear? That really high-pitched whiny sound? Well, the composer wrote that sound not just for one violin to play politely, but for somebody doing sound effects here, but for each of us to do. So you're going to hear 20 of us playing the high-pitched whiny noise in your ear at once. So before you all get up and leave, I'm going to say to you something that probably no one has ever said to you in your life. Because since the name of this song is Mosquitoes, I'm going to say, and now, please enjoy mosquitoes.
give you an encore. When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. I think we've probably all grown up listening to this song. It was written for the Disney movie Pinocchio in 1940. The composer was Lee Harline. Lyrics were by Ned Washington. And it was recorded by the singer Cliff Edwards, who also was the voice of Jiminy Cricket in the movie. It was a huge global hit in 1940, and it won the Academy Award for Best Song. And next, in the 1950s, Disney adopted this tune as their signature, and they played it in the opening credits, and I think the closing sequences also for all of their anthology TV shows. So we probably heard all that too. So enjoy.